Hi, this is Bill Cullen. Welcome to another edition of Cullen's Adventures. Today we'll be devoting our time to tracking down some background information on that old you can't get away with crime staple, the fingerprint. Our program is presented as a special service by this station and is furnished by the publishers of the Book of Knowledge, the foremost children's encyclopedia for more than 50 years. It was that lawbreakers in this country had their first introduction to the experience of being fingerprinted. Well, it was in November 19 federal penitentiaries began in the U.S. Penitentiary in Leavenworth, Kansas. In a way of unfolding a few further facts on this more or less inky subject, the inauguration of fingerprinting at Leavenworth in 1904 marked one of the climaxes in a long search for a surefire means of identifying criminals. Written descriptions, pictures, and even sets of measurements just were too many inaccuracies. They could change. Finally, with fingerprints, police officials had an unerring guide to identification. We know now that, except in cases of injury, an individual's finger markings remain the same from the day of his birth to the day of his death. We know it now, but we didn't know it 100 years ago. The first published observations on the use of fingerprints as identification didn't appear until the year 1880. The idea of using fingerprints for identification seems to have been thought up at just about the same time by two different men. The fellow who wrote the original paper on the subject was a British doctor named Henry Falls, who lived in Turkmen. Sir William Herschel, in the government service in India, had been using fingerprints to identify prisoners committed to jail. After these two men paved the way in the idea, and in 1901, a system of fingerprint filing was established known as the Henry system, a cataloging arrangement which is very much like the system used by all English-speaking countries today. Do you sometimes have the feeling that you're in charge of the largest fingerprinting if you have a light-colored bathroom walls and a youngster or two addicted to mud pie making? Well, you may have one of the largest, but by no means the largest. That's in Washington, in the Department of Fingerprint Records of the FBI. It's estimated that there are now some 150 million different sets of prints on file there. But no matter what you hear about the nation's rising crime rate, don't get the idea that the country now harbors some 150 million lawbreakers. The FBI collects finger markings not only of criminals, but of millions of law-abiding citizens, government employees, military personnel, applicants for government jobs, and so on. The public does benefit from having its fingerprints on file. In case of a train or plane disaster, or kidnapping, or amnesia, fingerprints may be the only certain means of identification. A fingerprint could mean the difference between your being identified or not being identified when they're looking for the heir to a long-lost uncle's $10 million, give or take a few. And with that happy thought, we'll have to bring today's Cullen's Adventures investigation to a stop. If you like these short adventures into fact and fancy, and would enjoy sharing some of our stories with the youngsters in your family in special booklet form, how about letting us hear from you? You just write your name and address on a postcard and mail it to Cullen's Adventures, Box 3400, Grand Central Station, New York City. No money, just your name and address on a postcard. I'll be back tomorrow with another edition of Cullen's Adventures, furnished by the publishers of the Book of Knowledge. Till then, this is Bill Cullen saying goodbye.